Hello and welcome back to New Paradigm Healing. This series focuses on ayahuasca-assisted therapy. Our intention is to educate, inform, and support the conscious and responsible use of ayahuasca in the Western context. If you want to know more about ayahuasca-assisted therapy and our upcoming trainings and workshops, sign up for our mailing list to be the first one to know about the latest news at 𝙤𝙬𝙧𝙚. So welcome back to everybody. And today is very exciting. I'm having Angela, my sister, here with me for this podcast, and we're gonna dive into the preparation for an ayahuasca ceremony. So I'm super excited to have you here today, sister, and I just want to give you a few moments to introduce yourself, to share something about yourself and the medicine, and how did we come together here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I'm Angela Benck. I'm a co-founder of Temple in the Sun. We're a trauma-based center in South Florida where we work with multiple plant medicines. I've been working with ayahuasca for almost 5 years now. And I know for a lot of people that's pretty short on the path. I've done a few plant diets and preparation. I had a really solid spiritual foundation when I was called and introduced to the medicine. So I have a unique perspective in that I was already working with a lot of shamanic teachers in shamanic journeying and doing ceremony work for many, many years before I actually ever came to plant medicine. So I had a very solid foundation once I came to plant medicine, which a lot of people don't have, right? And it's also not necessarily their path. They're coming to plant medicine to heal, which I also came to heal. I had breast tumors, 2 breast tumors in my right breast. And I kind of made the declaration or intention when I discovered them that I need to go to the Amazon or the Amazon need to come to me. And so ayahuasca, even though I was introduced to her years before I discovered the breast tumors, once I discovered them, it was just kind of like that set my path in motion. So yeah, it's been a beautiful journey, and I've loved working with her. And when I went to Peru, she asked me to move to Peru and take my rightful place as maestra down in Peru, sitting on the mat and teaching. And I told her no, which we both had a good laugh. She's very loving and playful for me. She's been loving and playful for me. She's been like a sister for me in my journey and my interaction. And I told her I'm happy to continue this work with her and this path with her, but that she would just need to come with me and work with me in Florida. And lo and behold, we were just recently gifted an ayahuasca plant for our property. Yeah, she's probably about 4 years old, maybe. She's very healthy, pretty big size. Obviously, you don't want to harvest from them, minimum like 10 years. I'm sure people harvest sooner than that, but you want them to be developed and start to have a really strong constitution and energy before you start harvesting and cooking the medicine.
Totally. Yeah. Thank you for sharing, sister. Would you like to share a little bit more about your healing and how the medicine helped you to heal? What was that? Because you said that you had a path before, a spiritual path, and you had tools and practices, and then you had this physical condition, these tumors. So what would you say was that extra that the medicine added to that path that you already have been walking before? And how are you now physically speaking, in terms of the tumors?
Yeah, so I drank the medicine and my tumors were removed instantly. So 100%, I actually already had that belief before I ever came to the medicine. I knew in the core of my soul and being that instant healing is possible. And I've healed myself of many things, but I've obviously not anything like that. She had me put my hand on my boob and the tumor shot out of my body because everything's energy. I also take full responsibility that I manifested them as instant as I healed them, which most people struggle with, right? Their basis of their beliefs. So what ayahuasca has always met me in my state of consciousness and being able to expand it a little bit more than like being in the dense victim energies, which we all have, because that's a part of separation consciousness. That's just a part of the human experience, to separate from source, and helping me remember, right? To me, she's helping us remember, and each of us have a different journey on what that looks like, what your path of remembering looks like. You know, did you do a lot of work in your previous lifetimes that your level of remembering? For me, I came into this life, I didn't forget. And I tell people, like, I would commune with water when I was 8. Water would teach me. I had many, many lives that I would do meditations in my earlies, like in 20, I'd be able to do meditations and see all the faces of the people that I've been in other lives, all the faces of my ancestors. And I never needed medicine to see that. But obviously, medicine, it's like a key to a door. If you have doors that are shut, it's going to help you open so you can see better, so you can remember the truth better. I feel like all medicines are working towards the same cause now, regardless on, and just speaking from non-synthetic based or plant-based. So I'm not speaking out of that realm. That's not my area of expertise, but plant-based, I believe they're all working, all earth medicines, animal, plants, are all working for the same good, which is just for us to unite and remember in consciousness that we're all connected, and that we're also in our all connectedness made to be our own unique blueprint of the way that we're designed to be. So the way that I'm made to be and grow on this journey, on this plant path, and the way that you're made to be and grow on this plant path, although they might have a lot of similarities, right? We're totally different. And the way that we came to this work is likely totally different. Even though we're going to have similar experiences, it's still just going to be very unique to each of us.
Thank you. Yes, I so resonate with what you were saying about your healing process, how the medicine kind of expanded your awareness, your consciousness, so you could see the roots of, you know, why you were creating that in the first place, and then make conscious choice just to let go.
So I
And
physically healed like instantly, but it would take me another couple of years before I could get to the roots of why that actually manifested. Like, I didn't know the sickness where it was rooting from. And
right,
so to me, and I've explained this many, many times, right? Anything that's going to manifest in the disease means we're separate from source. So there's a rotten root somewhere. And so I had a lot of sexual trauma and sexual abuse as a child, and I didn't remember it. And I believe most of the people on the planet have massive levels of childhood trauma that we bury, we don't remember, based on survival. Like, we had to shut those parts of us down for us to like be alive. And so it took a long time before I was ready to remember. Like, ayahuasca even pulled up like the whole right side of my body, almost like rolling up a rug, and showed me the darkness. And I was like, I could just feel it. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm not ready to go there. And I was like, can we revisit that next year? I literally put it off for an entire year. And she like just like laughs, and she was like, sure. And she rolls it back down, goes about it. Next year became last year, and I had to deal with all of it. Otherwise, then I would have just
right,
manifested more illness to get my attention. Because on a soul level, I made a commitment. Spirit showed me I made a commitment a few years ago to do whatever it took to remove the walls around my heart, and then to go all in. And those were two deep commitments. Those were things I said from my heart, from my soul. I said, because I knew that there was no other option for me to be here on the planet. And a few years ago, maybe it's 4 years ago now, ayahuasca showed me the remainder of the walls, because I asked her, show me the walls around my heart. It was probably my only blissful journey. She opened up the walls. I had 8 hours of bliss. And I was like, okay, well, I know I can live that, but how do I live that, right? How do I live deeply from my heart in a bliss space? I have to remove the walls. Okay, what does it take to remove the walls? Going into the depths of hell and removing every piece of separation and darkness that you have living inside you. And we all have it.
I totally resonate with that. And in another episode, we're going to more expand on the integration, and how you continue with the healing process after the ceremony. But I had a similar experience, and a lot of people who I work with, come with also something physical that they would like to heal. I had this chronic pain. I shared, I think, one of the previous episodes with my menstrual cycle. Like every cycle, I would be in this excruciating pain that I would just vomit and pass out from the pain, like to that extent. Like it was like pretty bizarre, and the doctors couldn't find anything physically wrong with me. So they did all the physical checkups, and they didn't know. And then I, went more into alternative medicine, literally tried everything that I could put my hands on to help myself and to heal myself. And eventually, when I came to work with the medicine, that was really for me a key to go to the root, or to the depth of where that was pain coming from. And I did have an immediate kind of recovery after the first time I was with the medicine in Peru, meaning that that level of pain that I used to have each month, that significantly reduced, like significantly, and sometimes wasn't present at all. But for years after, I would have kind of these waves of kind of pain occurring, and further release, and further dropping into deeper layers of that story, and clearing that was like still going on. And I think, that my own tools and practices, obviously, like just supporting me so much to continue with this work until we are all back in balance and in alignment. And I want to connect back to what you said at the beginning, how you had already a solid path and the spiritual practice and understanding when you came to the medicine. And I was very much the same, and I was already a healer and a therapist, and just trained for many, many years, and had my own experiences. And a lot of people, I work with a lot of people who are also first timer with the medicine. And I never worked with anybody who didn't have any previous, I don't think you're ready. So what is kind of your perspective on this, in terms of when are you kind of not ready per se, but well equipped, even to consider that, okay, this might be, an appropriate step for me?
Yeah, so a lot of people talk about the ayahuasca call, like she calls you. And I definitely feel like that's true. Obviously, with pop culture, ayahuasca's in TV shows, radio, books, songs. She's everywhere now. She's global. She's just about in every country. So she's definitely left the jungle for a reason. And she's everywhere. There's medicine circles, whether they're underground or above ground, in just about every country, on every continent, whether it's legal or not. So to me, it's a call, and when I say that, people are like it's an outside call, like your cell phone's ringing, or like somebody's text messaging you. No, I feel like it's a call in here, or it's something you feel like in meditation or prayer, and obviously calls can look different. So just to work with a different medicine briefly, like I've worked with iboga, and I was just like, iboga's not calling me. And I'd have people in front of me that literally have initiated with the medicine. I'm like, that's not calling me, right? So calls actually can come in different forms. Literally, somebody can be in front of you sharing their life-changing experience, and that might be what's next on your path, and it's the universe giving you an invitation. And I feel like when it's really made for you, you'll often get invitations multiple times, right? Sometimes the 3 is like when you've heard it 2 times, it's like pay attention that 3rd time. It's like, okay, you really probably should like listen, right? Go for it.
Yeah.
A call can probably look and sound and feel different for everyone. It could be that, to me, it's not more of a peer pressure of like, ooh, what my friends are doing, or everyone's doing it. No, because I'm not that person to do what everyone's doing. I wasn't surrounded by people who did ayahuasca. I actually started telling people before I sat with her about ayahuasca, and then they would go to Peru. And I was like, I haven't even sat with her. And I'm just telling you about her and you're ready to go. So to me, that was like, that said a lot. Like, that's powerful. Like, what is this that I literally just can be introduced to her? I don't know anything about her, but I start sharing her with other people and they all of a sudden are like compelled to go sit with her. So the call can look and feel different. I feel like
Yeah.
it's something that, like your body might feel it. You might have an intuitive hit. Your heart might feel it. There's no hard and fast rule about the medicine path for everyone. And although many people try and tell you, what is this for you? Oh, everyone has different suggestions. We've been taught to distrust ourselves and our bodies since we were babies. Not only do we grow up on a global, stage that indoctrinates us from children, we have deep levels of conditioning that's been passed down and colonialized. So none of us are free, and we've all been impacted by that. And so many people don't trust the call because they don't trust themselves or their intuition. And
Absolutely.
so,
And the resistance as well, I think, like I really want to emphasize, what you said, that it is an internal and intuitive call, what we are talking about. I was very similar story. I was surrounded with the medicine, but I lived in Europe, in Ireland at that time. And I really felt that I'm called, but not here, that I want to go to the source to meet, and then this opportunity came for me to go, and I felt immediately that this is it, I have to be there. And I think, maybe what could be helpful for people, that if you are somebody who is not really connected with that intuition or not trusting that, you could ask, the universe or whatever you believe in, some higher power, and say, show me signs, guiding signs. Is this for me? Is this a good moment? And then just be present and open to notice that, because you're gonna get those ones. I had a friend who did this, and literally she was like, I don't know, shall I go and do this? And then like 2 hours later, a snake fell on her head from a tree, which is kind of, some people believe the snake is associated with the medicine and the feminine. So he interpreted it, that, okay, I think that's a clear sign. So whatever could be a sign. And a client of mine, I remember this was interesting too. She was not 100% sure. She was feeling cold, but still had a lot of fear around it. So I just said, it's okay. Whenever it's time, it's going to be perfect timing, and just ask the universe, to guide you. And eventually she went to see her psychiatrist who were describing her medication, and the psychiatrist told her that if you ever come across with the ayahuasca, I recommend you take it. Like a psychiatrist, like a medical doctor. So we are not saying names here, but yeah, she was like, that's definitely a sign.
Yeah, I had a similar experience when I was told about her for the first time, and it was like, it was an activation because her energy came through I'm just really energy sensitive, came through the person. It's like I could see her without having ever experienced the medicine. And it was that where I was like, okay, well, I want to go to Peru. And I was in Turkey. I was traveling all over Europe, and I had a dream. I was on a plane, and there was Turkish people on the plane, and there was Peruvian people on the plane. There was just a bunch of brown people, but like we weren't going anywhere. And so I just interpreted that I will go to Peru, but it was going to be a long time before I would go. And so it was a long time before I would make it to Peru, but I went. And so it was just like, oh, that's so perfect. Our dreams tell us. It's just, can we interpret them?
We are always surrounded by signs, and guidance is always available. But as you said, we are conditioned to you know, rely on logic and the mind, and therefore a lot of people disregard or not even notice. So I
Yeah.
think that's definitely a good pointer to get more in touch with that if you are considering this path. Okay, so let's say that somebody get a clear calling and they interpreted it and they decided that, okay, I'm ready. Like, what's next to do? Like, how do you, what is your experience and how do you work with people to prepare them?
So I definitely believe in having some form of a meditation practice,
Mhm.
some form of maybe even working with your breath practice. And I know this isn't going to be true for everyone, but the more people that learn about this medicine, the more they start researching, feeling into it, and saying like, yeah, I'm called. Okay, well, what do I want to do to practice? Do you have any form of connection, spiritual connection already? Okay, well, if you don't, you might want to start developing one, you know, some form of prayer, meditation, and breathing. To me, those are like cornerstones of spiritual path, spiritual practice, and the medicine path. If you're going to work with medicine, it's
So
teaching.
mindfulness practices, just cultivate any
Absolutely.
mindfulness or spiritual practice that if you don't have one, start getting on
Yeah,
it.
absolutely.
How long do
One-on-one
you
work.
think, you know, if somebody says, okay, I'm definitely feel this calling and I want to do this, like how long they should, before the ceremony, they should start like a conscious preparation process?
I feel like a minimum of like 4 weeks,
Mhm.
minimum, you know, if
Yeah,
not like a couple months is great
I
too.
do 3 months.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I
Yeah.
love that,
So
you
one
know,
to 3 months, I think it's very
I
appropriate
I
at
agree.
least.
Yeah, minimally like 4 weeks. Obviously, if you are in really bad shape or if you have a major illness, and that's a totally different story,
Yeah.
but it's also like, you know, why have you manifested this? And I understand that many people don't want to take responsibility, or that feels like shaming or blaming, or, you know, like you're making pointing fingers someone that they're the victim, and it's like absolutely not. I definitely believe in 100% responsibility, though. That means for everything. I'm not like, oh, I'm not responsible for this. If it's in my life and my experience, I'm taking 100% responsibility, because we're all connected from the beginning of time, and that I'm learning to clear my association and memories that I have that are intertwined with that.
Mm. So when you prepare personally for a ceremony, like what is your kind of practice, if you want to share, that you always kind of do?
So I am just being very intentional or mindful and just asking, you know, getting really clear. It's so coming from where I'm at, I almost take for granted because I've been on my path for my whole life, and I've never not had a strong spiritual connection with God. I was talking to God, you know, and meditating since I was 6. I have my first memory. I retaught myself at 19. So people that are like brand new to meditation, I try and remind people, you're not going to learn to quiet your mind in one meditation session, and you're most people are going to be like, oh my god, I'm the worst meditator ever, right? My mind is going crazy, and it's like, no, try and do this in small intervals. So, you know, 30 seconds. If you can only do 10 seconds, focus on your breath, you know, listen to your breath, connect the brain and the body, so you're breathing and making that connection, and then do it multiple times a day throughout the day, so you can grow your intervals from 30 seconds to a minute to 2 minutes, 2 minutes to 5 minutes, 5 minutes to 10 minutes. That's amazing, right? If
Right.
we have no foundation before, which most people have no foundation, so my mind, when it starts going crazy, I'm just like, whoa, what's going on? Because I'm struggling to concentrate. That's really all meditation is concentration. When you concentrate, then the thoughts start to move out of the mind like clouds, just like stormy weather. Or I use the imagery of like a train station. When you're sitting on the bench, a bunch of train goes by and then the train station clears. So that's our thoughts. They're moving to the past and they're moving to the future, clouds or trains, whatever you want to use, and just sit and focus on your breath. When you see, you'll see as you develop that mindfulness that you're going to the future. And a lot of times that creates anxiety and suffering. And then you'll see you're going to the past. Okay. That can create like sadness or depression. And I'm hooked in and suffered, continuing to suffer from that. So I'm coming back to the breath. when we move through deeper levels of trauma on the plant path, we don't have so many superfluous thoughts because most of the thoughts and judgments are hooked into our trauma. They have been imprinted during the time of trauma based on that event, what we were thinking the adults around us were thinking, and that because we're very open as children, we're little sponges, we absorb all of it. We absorb whatever's being said consciously and whatever's being thought and felt unconsciously. Then all the things that we were thinking and feeling that we weren't in a safe, loving space to feel, we barricade that inside of us to hide it, right? We block that off with trauma. And then these becomes the state of emotions and thoughts that we live in a daily basis. The majority of the planet has never known themselves without trauma. So your very identity is entwined with this. And so most people talk about going to the plant path and they're like, oh my gosh, it's an ego death and it's an ego death. In one respect, yes. And in another respect, no. It's you're unwinding from the identity that's trauma-based. So that is it feels like a death. But that's not true. When you actually meet the unmet parts of you in love and sacredness and communion, you begin to integrate them into wholeness, which you even say, and I've said for years, that's our natural state of being. We've just, splintered off or fragmented in this experience of separation. And so having any form, no matter how simple, of a meditation practice, even if you're just starting for 4 weeks and where you can incrementally go up to 5 or 10 minutes a day, maybe twice a day. I mean, that's life-changing because that's you communing with source and spirit inside of you, learning to trust those voices more than any shaman out here.
Hear those voices too.
Right. Discerning what I call the talking heads, which are the trauma voices, which are the unhealed parts of us, which are the parts that have been conditioned by our family and society. And we can root those out with loving kindness.
Totally. I absolutely think that this is one of the most overlooked aspects of preparation, because most people just talk about the physical dieta that we're going to talk about later, but the mental preparation, as you say, to have like some kind of mindfulness practice, and if you don't have any, just start with something very simple. Sometimes I just teach people to simply count their breath, like just count 30 breaths. I'm breathing in, I'm breathing out, 1, 2, 3, and most people cannot. It's like 8, and then story, like where was I, like what's the number here? You have to start it again. So anyways, so it is a practice, but why we are recommending this and emphasizing it so much is to create some kind of quietness in your head, in your mind, so you can be more clear and more relaxed in your mind and more intentional also heading into your journey, and to really, as you said, you are very clear and intentional. Like I personally, I write a prayer, like I write down, this is why I'm here for, this is what my heart is saying, and it's literally a personal prayer for each time. And I when I work with people, I ask them to do this, after the preparation process. So do you do anything like this, writing things down, or just really clarifying it in your mind? And do you recommend this to people to have like a clear intention as much as possible?
As much as possible. I tell people that your conscious mind is going to be like the gatekeeper. And so a lot of people aren't conscious of what their body and their hearts are asking, which to me is where an intention really wants to be invited from. But your conscious mind is the gatekeeper. So it's a starting point. And then you just start there and it can go deeper. A lot of times people are like, I don't have an intention, I get out of the way. So there's like a double-edged sword when it comes to mindfulness, right? There's many, many people that are conditioned that have their breathwork practitioners even. They have meditation practices. I've sat with people in medicine that have meditation practices for over 20 years. They live in their minds though. they've been able to harness concentration, but they've not been able to move it into their hearts or their bodies. And they still struggle with taking down the walls. And so it's really, really important to say no amount of medicine takes down your walls, your trauma walls. That's between you and source, and also feeling safe enough inside yourself to do that. And so most people don't know how to cultivate inner safety. And so no amount of mindfulness and breath work, if you're not ready to take down your trauma walls, will take them down for you. It's a great step, but it also can be used to stay out of the heart and into the mind, right? And so it's
Right.
being mindful that you're not trapped in your mind, that you're
Right.
actually moving it as a pathway or as a map to go from your mind down to your heart, which is the longest journey each of us will ever take. And that's going to look different for each of us.
Right. Yeah, I really agree that a lot of people are pretty surface with their intentions of either they don't have a clear intention, or they like, oh, I just want to heal or be happy, or something more general. So in my program, in the 3 months of preparation, actually, they have one-on-one sessions when there is a little bit of therapy happening to help them with compassionate inquiry to create more awareness. Why I want to do this? What is that? Is really, that I want to change? What is that thing that I want to change? So, and also I find when people commit, when they hear that calling and they say yes to this journey, I feel the medicine is already working with them,
Absolutely.
even, in that preparation. And I say this to people. So emotions come up, things come up, like fears come up. You are heading into the unknown. So we'll take those sessions, to have, like I do have people through this to give them more just clarity and confidence before. So do you recommend that people have sessions with a guide or a therapist before, and help them to process a little bit mentally, emotionally what comes up,
Absolutely.
before they go into the ceremony?
Absolutely. Yeah. If they're not familiar, as soon as you make the commitment, whether you paid the deposit or you just know on a soul level you're committed,
Yeah,
that literally is an invitation to have the stuff that's in your subconscious start to unearth. And the way
totally.
most, and to have things in your life be triggered. And so if you don't know this, you're like, oh my God, what's happening? Like left and right, right? You're like, that's a part of ceremony. Ceremonies before, during, after. Like it is an
Yes.
entire like container. And most people, oh my gosh, we've had someone try and come to ceremony, they got into a car accident. I mean, the level of resistance that people will manifest to not come here. Oh my gosh, I have the sniffles, especially with COVID. Like, I can't come. And it's like, okay, whatever you want to do to get in your own way to not change your life is absolutely going to come. These are defense mechanisms that have been put in place inside you to keep you safe, because there's terrified parts of you that haven't been revealed. But
Absolutely.
I heard 𝙁𝙁𝙁 say, and I love that she said this. She said, it's not that we're afraid of the unknown, because the unknown, there, we don't know it. So there's nothing to be afraid of. We
Right.
actually take our identifying of what the unknown is going to be. So our inner expectations, which normally comes from the past, and we throw it into the unknown, and then we're terrified.
Right.
The unknown is
It
a
makes
blank
a lot of
slate.
sense.
Right. So it's like you're actually afraid of what the unknown might be, and versus it being the unknown. Like if we meet the unknown from a place of safety, love, and connection, because to me
Right.
that's the universe and that's the place that God holds us. And to me, God is the unknown, then I'm safe in that place. But when I take my trauma based from the past and throw it into the unknown, that's terrifying.
Absolutely.
And that's to me where most people psychologically, unconsciously are afraid of the unknown. Most of what we're experiencing in life, because it takes an incredible amount of power to be 100% conscious 100% of the day. It just doesn't happen. You'd burn up so much, you'd be exhausting, right? Unless you're just meditating in a cave and you're a monk like 24 hours a day. And even then, I would say like they're not 100% conscious. We're not. We're just not. We're humans. We're going to live. The majority of our life is going to be unconscious until it's ready to be unearthed. You know,
Yeah.
I use the iceberg analogy. You see 10%
Oh yeah,
iceberg,
totally.
90% you don't. Well, the 90% is the currents that are driving your life. That's steering your ship. But ceremony is about unearthing that so you can change the direction of your life, which is the vibration and energy that you hold and how that directs the currents.
Yes. What about preparing on a spiritual level? We talked about preparing mentally, preparing emotionally, and just processing some emotions and getting some support with that.
Yeah.
I find that, you know, a lot of people who come from the West, they don't really have spirituality.
At all.
Yeah.
I ask people,
So,
what's your connection with God? I don't have a connection, or a lot
yeah,
of people probably hate God. Like if they're really being
yeah,
honest with themselves, because the God that they've been introduced to is like a man-made version.
right.
It's
Yeah, so there is a lot of conditioning and distortion and disconnection. So I put that in the preparation to bring in the spiritual aspect and, you know, to encourage people to connect with something greater than them, whatever they call it or they feel it in some way. Most people have some kind of idea or primary, you know, connection, and, you know, to create this
relationship.
spirit, yeah, this spiritual space also for the ceremony. So the ceremony is like a ritual. So as you would go into a wedding, I explain people with this analogy that you dress up, you know, like you wear special clothes, you clean yourself, you put yourself in a good mood, like there is preparation because it's something sacred. So I think it's the same, you know, with the ceremony, just to prepare from that perspective energetically, like go inward, you know, take time for yourself, don't do so much activity, journal, meditate, as you said. There is a special diet that you do, you know, before the ceremony, that physical cleanse and purification. So it's a very, very internal, like you are just withdrawing your energy within and focusing, and start withdrawing and focusing internally and quieting down and kind of detaching from the distractions and the activities as well. Do you think it's important that people do prepare, you know, from this perspective as well?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, when I talk to people or have sessions with people and I'm like, what's your relationship with spirit? Like, start discovering that. Like, you don't need medicine to discover that. Like, you can start exploring that on your own. Like, you can, be guided. What is an ascended master or an angel or, um, um, a deity that you want to have a relationship with? It's about building a relationship. It's the many faces of God, universe, source, the beloved, the divine, whatever you want to call that's going to give you that heart connection. I had to heal my relationship with the word God because there was so much religious indoctrination, being that I grew up Catholic. And I had a priest tell me when I was going through communion, because we had to confess something that I'd never told anyone, because I was like, I'm 8, I don't have any sin. I never did anything to have sins. I just remember thinking, like, this is such a bunch of bullshit. And so I told him, he was like, well, just tell me something you've never told anyone else. And I was like, well, I can speak to spirits. And he was like, you're a devil worshiper if you speak to spirits. And
Wow.
I just remember having the fear of God put in me from a man that had no connection probably with God ever. And I had one since I was a child, that I could see and speak to spirits. It took a long time to unravel from that. And I literally had to like date a Christian man that would be like, well, are you a devil worshiper? Because I could speak to spirits and see ghosts, and he didn't believe in that. And I'm just like, well, I'm glad I've cleared that. So now I can call God any name I want. I don't have to prove myself to God or myself or anyone else. And I have a relationship that continues to evolve, and it's personal, right? My relationship with God is personal, just like my relationship with ayahuasca is personal. Because to me, that's an aspect of God energy, a part of creation. And so start discovering that. It doesn't mean you have to have it all figured out. Doesn't mean you have to have a strong relationship before you go sit with the medicine, but like, that's definitely a cornerstone on your path of self-discovery and self-mastery, which to me, if you're going to medicine, those are pieces and parts that are integral part of the whole. It's very, very
Absolutely.
important.
Thank you for pointing that out. And yeah, just to summarize a little bit about what we talked, the important points of preparation. It's not just a physical diet. I think that's the least part of it, that you are on 1 week before the ceremony normally, or 2 weeks, depending on this restricted diet that you can Google, by the way. So we're not going to talk about it today so much, but more like the mental, emotional, spiritual aspects of this preparation, and making this commitment and making it real. You made a choice. You made a commitment to a path, not to the medicine or to an event, but to something that you really, really want to do. And it's kind of, I feel like, honoring yourself and your choice and yourself in that journey. And I just want to say that I feel that you get out what you put in. So if you go in without any of this, it's going to be a very different experience. I'm not saying it's not going to be perfect, in a bigger scheme, but it will be very different. And I find this, this kind of approach, when you do this conscious, responsible, sacred approach, it has a huge impact on your experience itself as well, but on your journey, like in general. So I'm so happy that you shared all your experience, and thank you for coming. And if you want to share anything else, just to remind people about the preparation, let's do that.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, I have a couple more things. So we're not going to go into as much about like the physical dieta, but and there's people in Peru that are like, there's no such thing, but like with Western, because Western world is very toxic, that like the Westerners definitely need detoxing. It's really what I've learned about food and energy my whole life. I've been able to change the energy or the molecular structure of an apple. Like just by holding and praying with the apple, it changes the energy. Jesus talks about this. I'm sure Buddha talks about this. Most masters talk about this because we're energy beings. And so your energy carries a frequency. They talk about this too when I was doing dietas. Pray over the food. Any food that you're consuming, when you pray over it, you're automatically changing the frequency. And so most adults, most of the time, and this is not all, are eating mindlessly, and most are eating their feelings, because we're in a world that doesn't give us permission to feel. And once I started realizing how much I was eating my feelings before I actually started doing the plant diets, and it was really just to be more conscious about what I'm consuming. And that's the same, right? What are you consuming mentally? What are you consuming emotionally? And we actually normally put that onto our food. And so the diet isn't necessarily for you to be healthy or vegan or vegetarian or whatever that is. It's to help you be conscious about what you're putting and bringing in on all levels. And so I just wanted to add that most of us are eating our feelings because we're in a world that doesn't feel safe to feel. And we can only feel safe from the inside out. And then we create a new world. And so when we begin to relearn our connection and relationship with food, we move out of judgment, which is a huge barrier to moving deeper into the heart and the embodiment process with the medicine, is just, from love, compassion, gratitude, not from a place of that I have to be grateful, but from a place that feels enriching and loving and appreciative from the heart.
Yeah, totally. It's a great opportunity also to heal our relationship with our body, and food as a reflection of nurturing our physical body and that nourishment. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. I wanted to also point out that if you are somebody who has specific medical conditions, or are on medication, or you have chronic disease, there's definitely, you should talk to a person who is an experienced guide, facilitator, and personally consult on your unique requirements. So what we were talking about today is like more general, and it's more for people who are relatively healthy. But definitely if you have a specific scenario, like there is more preparation needed, and somebody who's professional and who can guide you and help you to assess what you need to do. Maybe you need to wean some medication off and so on and so forth. And also there are some contraindications, and that also depends on the circle and the people, I think, mostly who hold that space. You know, and some people say, okay, if you have mental illness, you know, I'm not going to take you into the circle. And I heard other people who don't have this criteria. So I think it can be different, but there can be contraindications, and in some cases people can be advised maybe to do other type of healing work before, or work with other plants, you know, to kind of prepare. And yeah, the individual guidance and the personal support, that you know somebody who is an experienced guide. I don't want to say doctor or therapist, because it doesn't matter what the paper the person has. What matters that person been through this many times and can hold space and guide others. And I'm not a doctor, so when I have people with medical issues, like I have a doctor who is also part of the circle, and you know, they're gonna consult with the doctor as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. I love the maps.org. They have a lot of really great information on their website that talks about,
Awesome.
I believe, contraindications and you know, prescription medications and that kind of stuff. But yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah, maps.org, right? Some good information there. Is there anything you would like to share, sister? Some offerings that you might have right now for people?
So I work one-on-one with people. I typically work anywhere from 3 to 6 months with people one-on-one, doing one-on-one coaching if they're wanting to do deep dive work. I do a lot of inner child work. We work locally. We do ceremonies locally at Temple in the Sun. So feel free. You can always find me on social media under Angela. My last name is B as in boy, E-N-C-K. You can always send me an email at just Angela Benck, B-E-N-C-K @gmail.com. My website's the same, my first and last name.com. So I'm available on most outlets. You can reach out if you have any questions, comments. We're doing a goddess circle at the end of the month. And we specifically focus on childhood trauma. And so we do really, really sacred, safe work in our container, people that have traumas. And so that's pretty much our specialty. And that's where we're setting ourselves apart, where we're not just any type of medicine community. We're working with specific people. And we're also starting to tell people if we feel like they're not a vibrational match with us, because there's many people that say they want to do inner work and then their energy says something different, which is okay. There's nothing wrong with that. It just means they might not be a fit for us, or they might not be ready. And that can look different for everyone.
Yeah. Thank you for your service, sister, and your offerings. And I'm going to include all the links when we post the podcast, so that people can connect with you and reach out to you if they resonate with your offerings. You can learn more about the integration process in my book, Heart Medicine, Ayahuasca Assisted Therapy and the Integration Process. It's on Amazon, or from my website, 𝑘𝙪𝙧𝙧𝙧𝙧𝙧𝙧. And 2 weeks, I think I'm putting out, like, it's a 7-week online workshop. It's going to be about emotional release. So it's going to be focusing especially on how to process difficult emotions like anger, fear, grief, you know, that we would normally suppress, and to learn tools and to learn how to express these emotions in a healthy way. So if you want to let go of some heavy emotions, tune into that. I'm going to also share the link and put it out there. And thank you for listening, and leave us your comments, and you're going to see us back with Angela. Thank you, sister. I'm so honored to share this space.
Thank you for all who listened.
Yeah, lots of love to everybody, wherever you are.
Love you.
The earth right now, big hug and oceans of love. Thank you.